This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Coudrey and Peter Spinda. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Meaning Business. This is a podcast for people who are in business or looking to buy a business or grow a business or sell a business. And today we've got a special guest with us, Dave Zampech from Benchmark Business Sales. Dave's a business broker who specialises in the supermarket sector. So welcome, Dave.
Thanks for asking, Peter.
I thought we'd start off, Dave, if you just gave everyone a little bit of a background of how you got to where you're here today and the things that you've done. It's been a sort of interesting career so far.
Yeah, it has been. And thanks for the invite for today. Retail's been a big part of my life. Left Woolies on a Friday. Left school on a Friday, started at Woolworths on the Monday. And basically...
How old were you then?
Just about 16 and a half, thereabouts.
Kid.
Yeah, kid. So
Probably had hair then.
I did have hair. Started off as a retail traineeship. Worked 3 days in the business, 2 days had to go into Brisbane. And got to work in all departments, all facets of the business, the deli, the bakery, the meat. Yep. So, got to see everything.
Which store was that?
At Woolworths at Behaviour in Ipswich.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a Greek manager, Mr. Soulis. So I think Mickey works for us at Benchmark as well. So he was his uncle. And he just passed away last year, unfortunately. But he was a big part of who I am today and taught me not to take rubbish and, don't accept second best. You've got to actually get out there and make it work for yourself. Yep. So I spent 4 years with him. By the time I was 19, I was running a department, the grocery department, doing 400K a week. So it was actually one of the biggest departments.
Decent.
At that time, in the early 90s, it was the biggest grocery department in Queensland in Woolworths. So from that background then, I went into assistant store management at 21, store manager at 24 out at Warwick. Ended up at, so I went to Kingaroy as my first appointment, went to Warwick, went to Roma as an actual store manager in Roma.
Wow.
And then came back, opened the Plainland Woolworths back in December 10, 2005, so 20 years ago. Yep. And then left 6 months after, So went and worked for a company called Encore Packaging at the time. I think it's called Opal now. Went in and back to my farming roots, supplying farmers their products. So, so it was good not to actually be on the farm working, but actually still working with them. Did that for about 4 years. So that gave me a bit more look at the supply chain, inventory management, forecasting demand and all those types of things. And then went to work back into FoodWorks as a retailer. Still love my retail. I still helped in between that. I was working, my wife worked for IGA owner and he opened a few stores, so I helped him open those stores as well.
So you're married by that stage?
Yeah, we met at Woolworths. Check out chicken.
So did she go with you to Warwick? And
she was 6 weeks before her 19th birthday when we were married. So we married 31 years this year. So congratulations. Yeah, going well. So but we done everything together. So did FoodWorks for 3 years as their manager, their new business manager. So going around helping stores transition sellers and buyers. So when the buyer comes in, the seller goes out, the buyer comes in. And that's how I got introduced to Benchmark through Matthew Hartley. And he just said to me one day, hey, you're doing this now. Would you like to do it with Benchmark? So that's why I specialise in that supermarket range. I think been in it for a long time. I have my own. I do consultancy work as well with stores.
How long ago did you start with Benchmark?
2015. I just got 10 years at the conference the other week. So it was excellent. So
and but also had some involvement, I suppose, with butcher shops and those sorts of things as well along the way?
Yeah, well, in 2015, I left FoodWorks to open up, went in partnership with the landlord out at Whitcomb, opened up a FoodWorks out there, had that for 5 years as part of the deal. In the meantime, he had a vacant butcher shop as well, and he said, Dave, do you mind taking that on? Sure. So we were doing those map packs that you see in the supermarkets today. So we were providing that to about 12, 14 IGA FoodWorks stores. All over sort of Western Queensland, or sort of Toowoomba-based area, because it's a bit easy to get to. We still had a few in Ipswich and Brisbane we did. But so did that for about 18 months, and then we'd all decided that children, it was a real family. So my 3 daughters worked in the business as well. So 2 of them ran the supermarket. 2 of them, my wife and daughter ran the butcher shop, and I did in between and Benchmark as well. So it was quite hectic. You're doing 4, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going to bed at 9:30 at night.
Yeah, it's a big day.
Yeah, so it was challenging, but it was rewarding. I mean, all the girls were getting well paid, and as they should in the family business, and doing a great job. So Eventually they said, Dad, can we go get a real job? So
They didn't like the boss.
they found out they couldn't just roster themselves up. And so that was probably the biggest gripe they had, was the fact that they could give themselves a 3-day weekend every fortnight, whereas now they had to actually go to work. So, but look, that's worked out really well for them and well for us. And so now my wife, she's working for Suncorp. The kids are working for accountants and Suncorp and
Buying houses.
Well, that's a process.
and-
One's got married, So, so that's part of the challenge. So so it's specialising in the game that we are in retail. So obviously you deal with a lot of sellers and you deal with a lot more buyers, and trying to marry them up is probably the toughest parts.
Yeah. And the thing we wanted to talk about today, the aspect that I think is really relevant to business owners, buyers, sellers, is stock management. So, in all your career, the management of stock, the ordering of stock, the pricing of stock, the margins on stock is become a critical thing for you, right?
Yep.
And I got the idea to talk to you about this just the other day. It's now just after Easter. And just before Easter, I was walking through Woolworths at Hope Island, and I was getting some Easter eggs for the girls that work with us to give them. And I'm looking through there, and this is the day before Easter, Good Friday, and you could not count the number of Easter eggs they had for sale. There's just the variety, the depth of stock, the money that they had invested in stock. I'm walking around thinking to myself, hey, I'm not going to sell all these Easter eggs by Saturday, and they're going to have surplus stock. I wonder how they manage their inventory. Are they planning on, they're going to have surplus and they're just going to flog it off? Because nobody really wants an Easter egg 2 weeks after Easter. It's just dead stock. And, they're going to have to discount it to sell it. So how would they do that? Do they decide, okay, what did we order last year? We want to order a bit more. What did we order last year? Do we want to order a bit less? Do we want to sell it at a higher price? Do we want to sell at a lower price? How do they manage that? So that's what got me thinking inventory. And I remember you wrote an article about, stock and stock takes for business sales and how important it is to manage your stock. And I thought you're the right guy to talk about. So,
especially from a perishables perspective, and this is the other thing, like, you buy excess pens, you can keep them on the shelves and they'll last for
They don't go out of
years.
date.
Yeah, exactly. But chocolate, like you said, and
or produce.
or produce. I mean, that's
Big cream yogurt.
Can you offer them? What do you
Yeah, look, I suppose that's where you talk about Easter eggs. So back when I was in the day of being in Woolworths, we used to mark down start on the Thursday. And then Saturday we'd clear them all out and all the rest of it. Basically, you made no money over that 6-week period, because basically you sold everything to the point that you made zero. So then they changed their process, reduced their order a little bit, but didn't do markdowns until the Sunday, Easter Day or Easter Monday, and then cleared it out. And forecasting, and then look, back in those days, we were just starting out on automated ordering and perpetual inventory and things like that. So they do a forecast for the whole year. So basically by March, they've got their orders in, for the rest of the year. Then they obviously see how the year trades and they divvy it up by store, because some stores may have more competition open up against them or competition close. And some stores will be trading 10% up on last year. Others will be 10% down or 5% down. So you're not going to send the same as last year if you're trading 10% down. You'll just shuffle it around, So, but that's why they've stopped doing that, because they maximise their margin up until Easter. Whereas before, come Easter Thursday, we'd be going along. And it was really at store level discretion, not so much national offers. After that, national offers said, okay, reduce this, because they could see by the movement that was happening, and they run manager specials. If you see a manager special, that's normally like a seasonal line or a dead stock. That probably isn't working as well as they thought it was. Get rid of it. I work in retail, I say 80-20 rule. 80% of the time it works, 20% it doesn't. Stop doing the 20%. You know what I mean? So that's probably the easiest way. So stock management is critical, especially with short dated stock. I mean, I suppose number one thing about all that is, you talk about first in, first out, so making sure date code checks are happening and things like that to manage through that. In my store, I had a very simple reason is if I marked it down, I just said two things. Why did I mark it down? Was it because I over-ordered it? Then that's not the product's fault. That's my fault.
Of course,
Or it just doesn't sell. So if it doesn't sell, I got to go, well, how many people is it going to annoy if I get rid of it? And things like that. So I had to make a decision then and there. Do I have something else that they can buy that is selling? That's very similar or comparable to that. And that's the decision I made. So over the time, I deleted quite a few lines that were costing me a lot of money. So, and I set a budget. Like before Autostock had come in with Woolworths, I mean, you're looking at 0.5% of a budget. Now it's like 0.1 because
Wow.
of Autostock. They've been able to save all that money just because of the perpetual inventory. My store, I was doing nearly 3 million turnover, and I recorded my wastage. Now, if you have a look at a P&L, most people don't have wastage in there. So I used to record it because I was in partnership with an accountant. So he recorded the wastage. So in a year, I wouldn't go anything above 20K. Because we used everything in store. We just reused it.
Yeah.
And meat might be going out of date. So we cooked it up, made a stew, and we sold it at $20 a kilo.
Yeah.
So we actually got more than what the meat was worth, So therefore we didn't have any wastage.
You were conscious of that.
Very conscious.
I think the thing is that in any service station or supermarket, and of course Woolies and Coles and Aldi, you've got a fairly significant investment in stock sitting on the shelf every day. And how you manage that by pricing it and ordering it is going to affect your profitability enormously, right?
Absolutely. And that's probably one of the things. Stock is cash.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's your cash flow.
Stock was money.
Stock equals cash. So if you've invested heavily in investment buying, you don't get that money back until you sell it.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys do that, and that's how they do make money. They'll buy it today at a cheap price, and they'll sell it out tomorrow at $2 more than what the special was, but it's still cheaper than the standard price.
Yeah.
And that's just simple ways of trying to return that cash as profitable as ever.
Yeah.
Some of the areas, and this is where I suppose with having minimum order points or minimum reorder points, MPLs, minimum presentation levels. So I used to be able to I knew the lines that didn't work. In a lot of cases, I actually went and put a red dot on slow moving lines. I mean, it was all manualized.
Yeah.
But in making sure that girls didn't order, my daughters didn't order too much because they did all the ordering.
Yeah.
And automatic or perpetual inventory worked really well in tobacco.
Yeah.
And that's a very high value for a low percentage of space.
Yes.
You can have up to 100,000 in a wall,
Just
whereas 100,000 in an aisle. you know? So so you've got to be very cautious about having too much stock in the areas you don't want it. And in law of averages, people say to me, Dave, when it comes to Stocktake, how much stock will be there? We sort of work on the 2.5 times your weekly sales. So if you're doing 100,000, I would say there's about 250 to 300K
Stock holding.
with a stock holding.
So
And so,
just go back to the cigarettes again for a sec. So I think it's geographically specific too, right? So I know with service stations, cigarettes make a lot more margin in servos than they do in supermarkets.
correct.
So they'd be on about 17% to 18%.
About 20%.
yeah.
Back when I had
Margin.
about 20%. Yeah.
And so you can decide, your strategy can be, do we sell a lot of cigarettes here, so we'll be low price, high volume?
Yep.
Or you might say, look, we make more money by selling a few packets but charging a higher price, getting a gross GP up.
Yep.
So that's a decision a business owner has to make, right?
Well, I've actually got one for sale at the moment who made that decision. So they've actually running their tobacco at 6%.
Yeah.
So but the idea was to bring, because where they are, they're in a regional country town, and they've actually decided to do that. But they also do a lot of those ready to eat meals themselves. So they make a lot of that. So you see the meals you can buy already done and things like that. So they actually make their own. Yeah, they make it fresh themselves. So that is actually core of their business. So between those things that running at 55% margin, and losing the 6% margin over here, overall they've got a 30% margin.
A better balance.
They've got a balance bringing people in. When they took that strategy on, they didn't look at Woolworths. They got a Woolworths and an IGA in the town, and this is a FoodWorks. Didn't even look at it. At them as competition. They went and did their own thing.
What's best for them?
And they did that. And by doing that, and they tried to do that overall in some stores, in some, they tried to say, do that. And it doesn't work everywhere. It depends if you've got a tobacconist in town. People see a tobacconist as a cheaper option rather than the supermarket and things like that. But they were able to identify that there was an opportunity in the market, and they also provided something else. So the tradies came in, not only did they buy the 6% margin item, they bought the 55% margin item. So sort of overall, they got 50% out of it,
Yeah, I know years ago, the Matilda at Underwood on Logan Road, I think it was, used to be like a tobacconist, and they were selling their cigarettes at like 8%. But they would bring so many people in, their shop sales were great. They decided to try and, increase the margin, lower the volume of cigarettes, their shop died. And to revert back was really hard because people had got in the habit of going elsewhere and they lost them.
You break the ants trail. That's the problem.
The ant trail is what you call it.
That's what we call it, the ant trail.
That's a good idea.
Because people are going there. And hang on a second, you've changed it. And that's probably why we actually tell people, when you buy a supermarket, don't change anything for the first 3 months.
Yeah.
See how it's running.
Manage it.
And just see where you can add to it, not take away to start with.
Yeah.
And then after 3 months, you can reanalyze and go, okay, these are where I can see opportunities to do things. There's so many people that take them over, and they're buying it from guys who've been there, or retailers been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
They know what's happening.
They learnt this over 20 years. You're going in fresh. It could be your first purchase or a second purchase, or you're in partnership with someone. And you don't know the area.
Yep.
You don't know the clientele.
Yeah.
The person selling it knows everyone by name normally.
Yeah.
If they're in a smaller town especially. And or the customers know them. Say, good morning, John, morning, whoever. So you're going in there as a new person. You got to start the whole relationship period again.
Yep.
You go in there and start changing things, they're going to go, oh, this, I don't like this.
Yep.
Can I tell you a long story about drinks and get your response to this? So when I had the service station, one of the service stations I had was Shell Ferry Meadow, and the back wall was all drinks fridges, right? And Coke, we were very good customers of Coke. We did what they told us. First of all, we could buy, because of the way you bought your Coke through Shell, we could have bought it cheaper from the supermarket. But anyway, bought our Coke through Shell, and we had what they call black doors. Did you used to call it black door? Yeah. So all these black doors. We had Pepsi as well. And we had all these black doors. Anyway, it wasn't until we got into inventory management and started looking at it, we suddenly realised, do you know what our top selling drink was? Water. And 600 ml water. These things. Number one seller, right? We had 3 facings of water, and we had all these doors of Coca-Cola cans, 375 ml cans, small bottles, big bottles, 1.25 litre bottles, 2 litre bottles, all these black door. Look, how much Coke do we sell? We're not making much margin on it because we're buying it through Shell. So first of all, we thought, maybe we can buy a couple of dealers got together and we buy truckloads, pallets of Coke, and we made a lot more money by buying it that way, but you had to buy truckloads and warehouse it. Then we thought, let's try a white door water. So that moved our GP on drinks up to over 70%. And then we thought, we didn't realise water's such a good thing. So we were paying something like, I can't remember, something like, let's say it was 50 cents a bottle, selling for, say, $2 a bottle. We thought, we can buy water. No one cares what brand it is, Mount Franklin or whatever. So we started buying pallets of water and getting it for something like 12 cents a bottle. And they're still selling for $2. So making a lot more money. So it wasn't until we suddenly realised what our best seller was and re-merchandised our store and focused on our buying price and our margin and realised that no one comes there because it's cheap, they come there because it's cold. We suddenly made a lot more money out of our drinks. So that's the kind of thing. What do you think about that?
Well, it's funny you say that. So I tell the water story. So when I was out in Woolworths at Roma, they went and moved the water section from 2 bays to 6 bays. And I've gone, what medically challenged person did this, because I'll go like, we're in a town where you can turn the tap on anytime. You don't get charged for it.
Water's free.
Water's free. Everyone had a tank and all the rest of it. In 6 weeks, I moved that to 10 bays. I couldn't keep up with it. But the other thing was, my soft drink aisle ran at 12 or 18% profit. The water ran at 40.
Yeah.
You just go like, hang on a second, sell more of what sells and make
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So since then, I've gone, hang on, if Woolworths are doing something, so I go and have a look. When new Woolworths opens, I go and have a look at what they're doing. Because they've spent millions of dollars.
Yes, research.
So you might as well piggyback. Might not do everything they do, but have a look at what they're doing. Actually, I could try that in my area, So, so I helped an IGA guy out, and he said to me, Dave, I'm really struggling with a few things. I said, yep, no worries, I'll come up. And I sold his businesses before. So I went up and he had 1 bay of water in a town that has a lot of people stopping there, touristy going through. They all stop there for, stretch the legs and things like that. I said, mate, we need to make that 4 bays. And everything else. He said, are you crazy? I said, look, I had the same problem. We did it. His weekly sales went from $240 a week to $1,200 a week and at 45% margin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just going like, oh, that was like, why didn't the group I'm with do that?
It's extra money for nothing.
And he said, it's easy. You only got to fill it up. It's pretty simple and things like that. So, managing stock is not just managing the inventory. It's also managing what range and what you've got. You know what I mean? So there's no point having 20 bays of products that don't sell and 10 bays of products that do. Look at how you can make that change. Sell more. I always say sell more of what sells. I mean, I went into a store that's got a primary school and a high school within 300 metres.
You're right.
They had 6 bays for confectionery.
Yeah.
And I go, and like 8 bays for that, but they had 12 bays of laundry powder.
Yeah.
I go, hey guys, let's move that to 6 bays.
Yeah.
Turn everything up to 1 facing, because you only sell what's on promo normally in those type of areas.
Yeah.
And we opened up the confectionery by 4 bays and the soft drink to 12. And his sales in those areas doubled,
Yeah.
because they actually had a range.
Yeah.
Because the other guy, the parents were then going to other places where they could carry a full range.
Yeah.
Whereas then he was able to carry the full range. So his sales improved. And the school was just down the road.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. So at the moment we're talking about FMCG, you know, typical retail, but there's other models of retail where it isn't the FMCG. It might be clothing retail. It might be, it might be hardware for computers or whatever.
Or furniture.
Furniture and things like that. The commonality here that from, I'm listening to what you're saying and what you're talking about is, first of all, understand the customers. So know the customer's desires, where are the trends and patterns happening, and what are customers wanting, and actually provide them what they want as opposed to what we think.
That's right.
We want to be
If you only stock what you're going to sell, I think we spoke about that at the conference, you're going to go broke very quick.
Exactly right.
That's critical. Second of all, you've got to think really strategically. So understand your numbers and get really, really pedantic about the numbers. So know what's moving, what's not moving, what are the margins, make sure that you're ordering the right amounts, look at the trends and patterns in terms of what you've done in the past. And like you said, if you're stepping into a new operation, whether it's a retail or any business, in fact, really you should be watching for the first 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely.
And asking the customers, hey, what did you like? What do you want? What are new things? How can we help you? How can we improve?
Yep. And that's the first thing you ask.
Yeah.
Hey, is there anything else we don't carry that you're looking for?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they go, oh, I asked the other guy and he didn't want to carry it, So, and look, that happens. And look, you talk about clothing and everything else, and you see end of season sales. So halfway through winter,
That's right.
they get rid of all their coats
Yep.
because they know they need room to put the new season stock coming through for spring, etc. So they've got to start making space. So they'll run the coat that was $200 at the start of the season is probably now $100.
That's right.
Because they need to get rid of it because they got new stock coming.
But
So
see, the clothing's an interesting one. So worked with a client not long ago where this individual, it's a micro, we're talking micro business, selling about $50,000 online, $300,000 plus in stock. Couldn't move the stock. And the reason this individual got into that pickle is because rather than buying using logic and mathematics and the market trends, they were buying based on what they liked. And so the sellers, the agents would come to this individual and go, oh, I got this new product dress and whatever it might be. And they get really excited and buy up all this inventory. And then months later realize, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that because it's just all sitting there and I can't sell it. And even when we were running the flash sales and things like that, the stock wasn't moving. Why? Because you bought what you wanted, but the market doesn't want that.
that's true. And that's half the battles. You see some of these new cars going, look, Great Wall. When it first come to Australia, they did that 4-wheel drive. Great Wall Motors. Now it's called GWM.
Yes.
They don't want to associate with the original 4-wheel drive. Some of the new 4-wheel drives look really beastly. But they do want to call it Great Wall. So they call it GWM. They learn. Exactly. And that's...
They probably ask their customers.
Yeah, they bought in a cheap one because they see the market in Australia needed a cheap 4-wheel drive, but it was cheap for a reason. So
There's 2 things you just reminded me of. Number one is we asked our customers years ago when we had 4 service stations in this northern area of Wollongong, is there anything that we don't sell that you'd like to buy? And no one really said anything until one person said, I'd really like to buy dog food from you guys on the way home if I could chuck, we've got a few dogs. So we started selling dog food in the big bags, the big bags, and put it out the front. And our dog food sales went through the roof. And then someone came in one day and says, I don't want to buy that. I want dog food, but I don't want those big bags. We just want the canned spal. Oh, right, okay. So asking the customers adds extra revenue for no cost, just by understanding what it is that you're not selling that people might want.
I think the thing that I throw in there, though, is I throw the caution in there, which is to say, okay, it's good to expand and good to listen to your customers, but just make sure that whatever you do, it actually aligns with the direction that you're heading in from a business point of view. So if your strategy is to become X, Y, Z, make sure that those items actually support that. And sometimes by having customers come to us, if you've got multiple customers saying, hey, listen, I want dog food, I want dog food, I want dog food, you might be thinking to yourself, sugar, should I be opening up a pet store and focus on more on the pet side of things?
What's the next opportunity?
Exactly. How do you shift to
So we opened a thrifty car rental business because people wanted to hire utes from us. So it was a great opportunity. Another thing, it's gone out of my head, it'll come back. Okay. Every business is an opportunity. When a guy came to me one day and goes, what are you looking at with your service stations? I don't know, petrol pump people, customers, cars. He goes, no, it's opportunity. You do whatever you can to sell people coming past your door something that they'll need or want.
Yep.
And I think that mentality is a good mentality to just say, okay, it's an opportunity. What can I do here? And, you know, it definitely needs to be regional specific. And
you got to maximise your floor space. And that means if hanging something from the roof, you hang it from the roof. You know what I mean? So, and that helps with the inventory, carrying the range.
Yeah.
You know, I went to a store, there's a buyer looking at buying one of the stores that Benchmark's got for sale. And I went and had a look at the store because I was going past and thought I'd just drop in. Hadn't been there for years. And there's like 50 square metres of empty space. And I'm going like, you're paying $300 a metre in rent for 50 square metres with nothing there.
And it looks bad.
And it looked awful. And they had 2 fridges and a little pile of rubbish stock. And now I'm going like, and merchandising your store is what improves your sales too. Correct merchandising and things like that. But yeah, what a lot of people make mistakes of, and they'll have the reps come in because they've got a job to do. They've got to sell more of their product.
Yeah.
They come in and they'll go, here's a suggested order.
Yeah.
10 of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It helps them with their bonus.
they get their bonus. You get a heap of stock left over at the end. Yeah. So your cash is sitting out the back because it didn't sell.
That's right.
So when you do that, okay, what are the best selling lines in my store? Yes, I'll get 10 of those, but the others I'll get 1 or 2 of.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where a lot of people, especially if they're not working in the business, they have someone come in when the owner's not on or whatever the case may be. Oh, you got to get this deal in by the end of the day. And they go, oh yeah, the boss will love this.
Yeah.
Until the boss comes in and goes, well, I've got 40 cartons of stock I don't want, you know. So then you've got to action that. And the money you would have made to what you had to action to has now broken even.
Exactly.
You know, so you've actually got no benefit out of it.
So what do you think of lost leaders, Dave? Well, I know FoodWorks and Bunnings, and I guess the big retailers will lead with lost leaders, right?
Yep, they do. And a lot of times those lost leaders are subsidised by the supplier as well. So whilst they look like they're lost leaders, a lot of cases, and IGA and FoodWorks do the same thing as well.
Would you do it if you had a supermarket?
Yeah, we used to. We had to.
Really?
As part of being the group, they would do things and they would do it on scan data.
Yeah.
So if we sold it, they gave us the money back of what we lost by the supplier. If you sold it after the event, you didn't get it, you know what I mean? So
did they give you the money or a rebate with the
just the rebate?
Yeah,
just the rebate.
Yeah.
The differences. They pulled your scan data and said, okay, that cost them $350. Here's $350 in the rebate.
But that's interesting. So that actually, so this sort of discounting model, lost leader model, you see a lot of smaller retailers, independent stores, or whether it be clothing stores or whoever it might be, try and implement it. And they don't understand that. Quite often the model is that the supplier actually comes to the party and works with you.
Yeah.
And so often business owners make this mistake in retail where they haven't got the experience and they think they're the ones that have got to foot the bill.
Yep.
They don't realize that a 10% discount actually goes against you because to get that 10% back, that's money out of your pocket. You got to sell 20, 30% more.
Yep.
Absolutely. So it's this mathematics of volume and you've got to sell more to break even. So often it just doesn't work. Unless you bring the suppliers on.
Well, the other thing is too is you're relying if you're doing BP or you're in FoodWorks, you have a buying team.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I used to be on like the pricing committee for medium-sized stores and things like that, and the buyers team would come and say, "Oh, we got this great special." So in Queensland, the only time you could sell wheat bix, June, July, August. That's the only time you can sell because that's the only time it's cold enough. We have 9 months of warm weather,
right,
and 3 months of cold.
Really?
So the only time you could sell a big box of wheat bix.
Yeah.
That's why it's on special this week. It's actually half price.
They put it on special for the whole 3 months and you're making 6 cents.
Oh.
You go,
at the peak time.
That's the only time I can actually sell it to make money. But that's because someone in Melbourne's sitting there or wherever they are, okay, they're going, oh, I got a deal. But the other thing is too, if you've got to make sure the deal, like sometimes they would go, okay, we got a $2 carton deal on this. They take $4 off the price for me to sell.
Yeah.
So I'm now wearing the $2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you've got to communicate with your suppliers and say, listen, I know you, and say, guys, look, why are you giving $4 off? I'm wearing that margin and try and get them to understand that because they've got KPIs to meet as well. So that is the struggle with selling a lot of stock because then you don't want to do it.
That's right.
So it's a bit of an egg. So then you go and sell something else similar and that you can get a deal direct from the supplier to help you compensate for that, So you've got to be really looking at what's going on there. So pricing is very important to what you're selling. So
what we found with the servos was if you're going to have a loss leader, it must bring people in and it must work. There's no point having a loss leader there if it's not going to work.
Correct.
And the loss leader, by the way, I don't believe a loss leader should ever cost you money. So you should sell at cost at worst, right? So if you're selling, in my case, we might have said 2 Kit Kats for $2, right? So it has to sell and it has to bring people in, and you have to compensate with the GP and the rest of the store.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're worse off, right? But if you can I think if you run a loss leader promotion, you're selling something that people in your store are going to buy at that point in time.
It's worth doing it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to work. So if you're going to run it, make it a winner.
Yep.
Make it
Absolutely.
huge.
Promote the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, they're selling chocolate at half price. I'm making 1 cent on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's not the point.
that's what they're coming for.
That's right.
Now selling the stuff at 40%, as well, So that's bringing the people in to your store. They're not going to go to, somewhere else because you've got that product. you know. So use it to your advantage and sell more of something else to compensate for that.
So how many business owners, small business owners, not Woolies and Coles, do you reckon are looking at their GP, their margins,
Very few.
and running their business?
Very few.
It's quite scary because as I'm listening to this banter back and forth, it's definitely pointing in the direction that you've got to know your numbers. You've got to understand your financials. You've got to be doing this on a daily, if not multiple times a day. And so that's quite scary. So
very few.
Yep.
And do most business owners have the resources to be able to measure their margins
Absolutely.
on line items and so on?
So when I go in to help a store out,
Yeah.
all I do is pull reports. I don't talk to them.
No.
I don't want to know what they think.
You want to know the facts.
I want to see the
Yeah.
numbers. Because numbers don't, as Al was saying, numbers don't lie. You know what I mean? So I just pull the reports, go away for 3 days, sit down, analyse them to the thing and say, right, these are your issues. Oh, they don't even see that because you get shop blind. I'll say it's shop blind.
Correct.
You're in
exactly right.
there.
You don't
and
notice the spider webs and the dust.
That's right. And they're trying to sit there and go, oh, I got knocked down on the compliance for this. I got knocked down for this.
it.
Oh, I had shrinkage and I had all these other things. And if you ask the store how much shrinkage they have, can't tell you. I could tell you what I had.
Wow.
Because I did it every week. I did it every day. We just scanned it through the checkout, voided it, so we knew exactly what it was and what the items were.
We had to Stocktake our cigarettes every week just to check out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're just about to say. You talk about stock inventory and things like that. So you've got high value stocks in a small space.
Cigarettes.
Yeah. And so we did, because we were on perpetual inventory, we didn't run the auto stock. We still did individual ordering, but we still had perpetual inventory. So we knew what we had on hand at any given time. The old days of the periodic, where you had to sit there, count it, and all the rest of it, that's gone by the wayside in those cases. They still do it for handover at a completion of a sale to make sure that the information is 100% correct. However, when it comes to perpetual, we used to do cigarettes every week, and we would do your health and beauty, the stuff that's pilferable.
Yes.
We would do that once a month.
You're right.
Just
Batteries,
to make sure, batteries, all that sort of thing, every month. But then everything else we do every 3 months.
So we're going to talk about Stocktake in a minute before we wrap up. But just back to that. So most business owners probably don't manage their inventory.
I would say 10%.
Wow. Would
10%
most business,
manage.
10% manage it properly.
Would most business owners know what their top 20 sellers are?
Probably not.
Wow. And if they did, sorry, Pete, last one, how much of a difference would it make to their GP, do you reckon, if they manage that?
At least 1%.
Wow.
At least 1%.
That's massive.
Yep. There's stores out there, you see them. When you look at their P&Ls, why is he running at 27% and he's running at 25%?
Yeah.
The 27% guy knows his numbers.
Yeah.
He knows exactly where his margins are coming from.
Yeah.
Whereas the 25% guy is just tying up to the catalogue, going through the motions.
Yeah.
So if you're going through the motions, you'll make as much money as the motions allow you to make. If you're looking at your numbers, you'll make more money.
I feel like the companies that have grown in the supermarket space, like White's and Drake's and those guys, have been good with their numbers.
Absolutely.
They've known what's selling, how to buy it right.
And they know the demographic.
Yeah.
They know what they're looking for.
Because of their numbers.
Absolutely. So,
Sorry, what were you going to say?
So we've got an interesting situation. So going back to when you started as a 16 and a half, 17-year-old, we had computers, but it was this big digital era that we've got. We've had a lot of innovation. If you look at today's world, millions of different types of inventory management systems and AI and all that sort of stuff that can give us this information, right? And it's accessible by everybody. Even the small operator can access it. So the question that I've got then is, if it's so accessible, right? We've got all this data. We've got the capability to understand the data using tech. Why is it that only, first of all, 10% of business owners are doing this based on what you were saying? And second of all, what's the message then to the 90%? What can they do to actually leverage this and become part of that 10%?
If you're talking about the 10%, they know it works and they work on their business, not in it. They're working on their business. The guys that don't, they're afraid. They go, I don't have time for all that. even though it's going to save them time. You know what I mean? In the long run, but they see it as it's just another thing I got to add to my list today, you know, to go through this and go through that. Oh, I know what I'm doing.
Just like chopping that tree with the blunt axe, because you don't want to stop to sharpen it because it takes time, but sharpening it would speed it up.
Would speed it up. Exactly right. So costs money. That's what they automatically think. Oh, I don't have the money spared to be able to do that.
Yes.
It's going to save you money. You know what I mean? So if you sat there and said, oh, look, we'll roll this out for you. You only pay us if it works.
Yeah.
They'd probably take that on.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be game to do it beforehand because they're too afraid. Yep. And they got to learn something new and whatever. Oh, no, I've been doing this 20 years the way I've been doing it, so I'm okay. They've got money in the bank. It's just like they're comfortable with what they've got and they don't want to have to go and learn something new. So, and that's where I see a lot of the time that you go, oh, you walk into a shop and you go like opportunity.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
But you talk to the owner, he's happy as Larry.
Yeah.
You just go like, would you be happier? You know what I mean? So, but they're making money despite everything they're doing, you know. Well, so they're happy.
I guess nothing's operating at 100%.
No. Well, that's the problem. Yeah. And that's why the opportunity when someone's selling it.
Yeah.
I say to the buyer, imagine if you did this, this, and this. I can see the opportunity. And then they go, oh, why aren't they doing that? Old school.
Yeah.
You know, so, so a lot of buyers then go, oh, geez, I need to get a hold of this business, you know. So
it goes back to mindset.
Absolutely.
Behaviour,
application,
change, discipline. Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, I want to talk to you about Stocktake. So, particularly about selling a business. So, is there anything that a business owners, buyers, or sellers could benefit from knowing about Stocktake at a sale? Anything you think we need to think about?
Well, one of the biggest issues I see that the stock is what it is. It's cash at the end of the day. A lot of guys are worried about paying stamp duty on stock. So they say, hey, I want that stock level from 300 to 200. The problem you got with that is it's going to affect the store sales because you're starting to destock the store. Do you really want to destock your store to start running down the sales? Because when you buy the business, you got to reinvest that $100,000 and you're not going to do that the first week. It'll take you 3 or 4 months. And in that time, there might be lines that you've run down or run low on. The customer goes, you know what, I go to that store because they're the only ones who have that. Now they don't have it. You know, and we get that a lot in the independent game because, you know, you got the big chains that have that we carry some of the other stuff as well. All of a sudden they think, oh, I might as well go back to the big chains, you know. So I always say, why don't you just buy the stock? Because at least you know it's there, you know, and everything else. And that's what I said. A lot of them look at stamp duty. Oh, I've got to pay an extra $5,000. Yeah, but you got to pay an extra $5,000 on stamp duty, but at least you've already got the stock there. You retain the customers. You retain the customers. You're not losing customers. I sold a store last 18 months ago, and the exact thing happened. It was actually, you know, receivers almost in receivership. There's only like 110,000. There should have been 350 there. You know, it took that guy 9 months to get him back to that, and his sales have only gone up 10% because all the customers in the local town have gone, well, I might as well drive to the big city, you know, 25 minutes away,
come back,
and it hasn't got them back yet, you know. So it is, very. Look, you know, I say it is what it is. Run it down, you know, from 300 to 280, 270, but don't run it down to 200, you know. So
what about would it be possible, would it be wise to say, if we're doing the Stocktake on the Sunday night and we're settling on the Monday, to run the cigarettes down and get a delivery of cigarettes on the Monday? That might save some.
What we had, well, that is the other thing. But timing is a lot of things too, because you might have a delivery coming in on Thursday and you're doing Stocktake Friday, or you might have the Stocktake Thursday and your load came in Wednesday. Yeah. So look at when you're timing your Stocktake to go around your loads, because what we have done before is they've done the order, but they haven't filled it. It was coming in that day, but it went onto the seller's account. They just added that to the Stocktake amount. Because they didn't have to touch it. And then they just filled it immediately. The next morning, when it was handover day, they started filling it because the Stocktake was done. So
you ever have buyers and sellers arguing over unsaleable stock, like things that's close to date or whatever?
Well, they do. Look, there's a form that most of the guys work to. The stock-taking teams will work to a Metcash sort of system that they say 28 days for groceries and frozen, 7 days for dairy products, etc. So they sort of work to that. And at the end of the day, as I say to when I'm selling a business and working with the buyer and the seller, to say, hey, those guys are the referee. At the end of the day, you're both paying them, so they're not favourite to either or. So if they say this is how we're doing it, that's what you agreed to. And 99% of the time haven't had an issue.
So it's really worth having that independent arbitrator to do that.
Absolutely. If the broker gets involved, the broker worked for the seller. So I go, you're on the seller's side, So if you say, well, look, you're paying this guy the same amount, he's the guy that tells you what to do. He does it for a living.
Yep.
So he knows what goes on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And on that, they usually, the buyer pays the landed invoice cost. So whatever the landed invoice cost was. So
Yep.
If they bought something 4 months ago at a lower price, it's the current invoice cost.
Current invoice costs. Look, I've had it in cases where they have bought, like you said, you buy your 5 pallets
Yeah.
and everything else, and they walk in and see 5 pallets. They're not going to pay the current cost.
Mm.
They look at that and say, well, you obviously got that on a buy.
Yeah.
We'll pay that particular product at the buy price that we got it for. You know, and look, that happens to maybe 5 or 6 lines in
Yeah.
a stock take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 cartons here and there is neither here nor
Yeah.
there. But if you're looking at 80 to 100 cartons and there's a $20 difference in carton price, you would definitely be saying, I'm only paying the cost price on that.
So that's where someone like you, an experienced broker who specialises in selling supermarkets, knows you can talk about that stuff.
Absolutely.
If you don't know the market, you won't know about it.
And I tell the seller that.
intricacies.
I tell
Yeah.
the seller, listen, you're not going to get full total odds. Oh, but no, we got to be fair. So,
You got to give them the news. yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to talk about, Dave?
No, look, it's interesting inventory game, but look, it's all about reviewing where you've been, making notes, because look, seasonality is the big thing that kills you. Like Easter now, as I said, I would nearly have about a 10-page report just for one department.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would look at that 3 months before Easter next year. So you're already planning 3 months in advance.
Yep.
So there's no surprises and things like that. And you go, oh, actually, we're trading down a little bit.
Yep.
And some of those lines might have been deleted. And what was the price last time? Okay, this time it's not on special. So that's going to have to adjust and things like that. So when I was an assistant store manager in Kingaroy, we had to order it. So at Christmas time, my order had to be placed for the day after New Year for delivery. Because of all the short weeks, they didn't pack it on the weekends and things like that. Bit different today.
Yeah.
But you're placing an order 10 days out.
Yes.
In the meantime, I already had 2 more orders coming. That was
Yeah.
So I had to know what was coming.
Yeah.
And it was just a juggle. And you'd still have out of stocks, obviously. Now with this automatic replenishment systems and things like that, they just put, there's going to be a 30% increase. Type in 30%,
Adjust.
increase your order automatically.
love
Decrease
that.
20%, decrease 10, 20%. So yeah, beautiful.
So it's been good having you on board.
No,
really,
appreciate that. Thank you.
This is really valuable.
we didn't talk about planograms or watch them, stack them high, watch them fly, and all that other stuff. We do that.
We can keep going.
It'd be an interesting one that we should touch on at some point and talk about, okay, the marketing strategies and floor strategies and there's so many different things.
There's a we put the counter and we put the drinks.
Actually,
Actually,
merchandising today just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No.
So it's terrible.
It's like a warehouse.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks,
if
Dave.
anyone's looking to buy or sell a supermarket, you should talk to Dave Zampech from Benchmark Business Sales, one of the gurus in Australia, particularly when it comes to small businesses, and he can give advice and help people with buying or selling. So thanks everyone for watching today. Hope we got something out of it. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Bruce.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.